We are going to download my slideshow.zip, and then we're going to be adding the JavaScript to create a little slideshow. And it really doesn't matter where the file downloads to. What matters is that you extract the contents into the Lesson 12 folder. So here is the downloaded file. And I'm going to extract and click on Browse. And then I'm going to make sure I am in my CIT 180 Lesson 12 folder. I'm going to select it and hit Extract. And then you'll notice there is a My Slideshow folder inside Lesson 12. And if we open that up, you'll notice there is a web page and a media folder. And the media folder contains the graphics for our slideshow and a background graphic. And what I'm going to do is go into VS Code. And I'm going to open up the My Slideshow folder and grab the file. And then I'm also going to view this offline. So you can kind of see what this looks like. Everything has been added to this, all of the styling, everything you need. The links work. The only thing that doesn't work is the slideshow itself. And that is what we are going to be coding. And if you look up in the CSS, you can see we have grid view set up. And we have some media queries in here as well. And then for the buttons, I'm using the nav ULLI styling. And I have all of the links formatted as well. Okay, so we have a couple different buttons in here. You'll notice at the bottom, I kind of styled those links as buttons. I did not use the button tag because I used that up here in the buttons that go with the slideshow, and I wanted them styled differently. A couple things to take note of that in our image tag, we do have an ID called My Slides. That is important because we're going to be targeting that in our JavaScript. And we're going to be adding the JavaScript right after the closing style and above the closing head. And I'm going to pause while I type in the code. There's quite a bit of code that I need to add, and then we'll go through what it does. So I've gone ahead and added the code. You'll notice I have an opening script tag, all of my code in a closing script tag, and that is all above the closing head. And in the code, I create an image array, and then I've got the different images for the slideshow in that array. And with arrays, when you are accessing the images, you have to subscript into the array, and the first image has a position of 0. The second image has a position of 1. Third one has a position of 2. And this is important because we have buttons that will take us to the next image and to the previous image. So knowing how to subscript in becomes kind of critical for displaying the correct picture. We have another variable called image num, which is short for number. And that is going to keep track of where we are at in the array. So what the current image is. And then we have image length. And this is referring to the length of the array, and in particular to the number of subscripts allowed. So image.length will just simply count how many items are in the array and return that number. So image.length is going to be 6. However, when we are subscripting in, we can only go up to 5. So we're going to subtract 1, and we're going to store that number 5 in image length, because that is the highest the subscript can go. Because if we try to subscript in with a 6, we are outside our array. So we're like off in computer memory, and we are not going to have pretty pictures there. So we have an image array. We have image number that's keeping track of where we're at in this array. And we have image length, which is basically our maximum number that we can use for subscripting. And then we have a function. And the function is called change image, and it is receiving a number. Now, where that function is going to be called from is the previous and the next button. And right now there is no code in there to call the function. So we are going to go ahead and add the code. And so this is inline JavaScript. We're adding an event handler called onClick. So when they click the button, we want to call change image. And functions do require parentheses. And in this case, we have to pass a value. So if they are clicking on the previous button, what that means is, if we're looking at the Bengal, they want to go backwards and see Callie. So we need to send them a -1, because that will make them go backwards in our list. And then for the next button, we are going to add onClick equals, and we're going to call change image. And what the next button needs to do is, if we're at the Bengal, it needs to go to snow monkeys. So we're going to pass it a +1. Okay, and you always use parentheses to pass data to functions. So we've got change image -1 if they click previous, and change image +1 if they click next. Okay, and you'll notice that the function call is inside double quotes, and that's all required. One other thing you'll notice is that the name of the function is case sensitive. So we've got change in lowercase and then a capital I in image. JavaScript, the language, is case sensitive. Upper and lowercase are different. So that is something you really need to pay attention to when you're keying in your code. As I mentioned, clicking the buttons is going to call the change image function. And so if we start on ASTI, and that is where we're starting, because if we look down where our image is, okay, this is the container for our image. You can see that it's displaying ASTI, okay, and that is position 0. If they click on the next button, then we are sending a 1 to change image. So we come up here, the number is a 1, and it takes the current number, which is 0, adds 1 to it, and stores number 1. And then it does some checking. Is the 1 greater than the image length? The image length is set to 5. No, it's not. So then it goes to the next check. Is the 1 less than 0? No, it is not. So then we come down here, and this is where it actually updates the picture. We are subscripting into the image array with the number 1. So Asti was 0, Callie is number 1. Okay, so we're going to take this picture of Callie and we are going to update the container. We're using document.getElementById.source. We are updating the source of the image and we are targeting my slides ID. So here's the ID. We are changing the source and we are changing the source to Callie. And so Callie will be displayed. Let's say they click the next button again. So we're calling change image and we're sending it a 1. Okay, right now change or image number is a 1. So we're taking 1 plus 1, we're putting a 2 into image number. Is 2 greater than 5? No. Is 2 less than 0? No. So then we come down here and it subscripts into the image array with a 2. So we have 0, 1, 2. It's going to retrieve Bengal, and then it's going to look for the My Slide ID, which is right here, and it's going to update the source with the Bengal graphic. Okay, and it's going to continue doing that as you click on Next until you are at Baboon. And when you are at Baboon, your image number is going to be 5. So if you're here and you click on Next, you're sending it a 1. And so then it's going to say 5 plus 1 is 6. And then we look, is 6 greater than 5? Yes, it is. Okay. Then it's going to set the image number to 0. Okay. Is 0 less than 0? No, it is not. And then it comes down here and it's going to go back to the beginning and grab Asti. Okay, and then it's going to target my slides and update the source to Asti. Okay, now what if we are on Asti and we click on previous? Okay, well, previous is going to call change image and send a -1. Okay, when we're on Asti, the image number is 0. So we're going to come in here. We've got 0 plus -1. So that equals -1. Is -1 greater than 5? No. Is -1 less than 0? Yes, it is. So then we take the image length, which is 5, and we make that the image number. So now the image number is 5. We subscript into the image array with a 5, and we retrieve Baboon. Okay, and then we target my slides and we update the source with Baboon. So at this point, image number is 5. We click previous again, and it passes a -1. So we have an image number of 5. We add a -1, and that equals 4. Is 4 greater than 5? No. Is 4 less than 0? No. We subscript into the image array with a 4, and we retrieve the poker bear. Okay, then we're targeting my slides, and we update the source to the poker bear. So that is how all of this works. And I'm going to save this. And now we're going to test it. Let me reload. And we click on Next. And so here we are at the Baboon. So right now, the image number is 5. And when I click on Next, it gets reset to 0. Okay, now if I'm here and I'm at 0 and I click on previous, Remember, it's checking to see if it's less than 0, and if it is, it sets it to 5. So it's going to display the baboon. Okay, now it's 5 and I click on previous, it displays the poker bear. Click previous again, it's the 3 snow monkeys. Okay, so it's cycling through the array, and when it gets to the end of the array, that's what those if statements are checking for. Now, what happens if you make a mistake? Well, most mistakes are typos. So if you make a mistake up in the images, what will happen, and let me mess up baboon here. What's going to happen is that image is not going to display. Okay, so if I click on next, the ones it can find will show. But then if you see something like this, then that means that there's a typo in that particular image. And all you have to do is come in here, figure out what the typo is, and fix it. Okay, then you save your changes, reload your page, and it should work. You can also have typos, and this is very common because it is a case-sensitive language. So you'll see I did a capital image here, capital I, and down here where I'm using that image array, if I did a lowercase I, that is going to result in an error because it's case sensitive. So this is a completely different array to JavaScript than this. So it's dealing with 2 completely different arrays. And this one with the lowercase I does not exist. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to reload the page. And when you have a JavaScript error like this, nothing works. Okay, you're going to click on all the JavaScript buttons, nothing is going to work. To see what the error is, if you have a desktop, you can press F12. If you have a laptop, quite often you have to press the FN key, push FN down, and then press F12. So here it is trying to tell me what the problem is. And it says image is not defined. An image is my array. Remember, I changed it to lowercase, but sometimes you don't realize you did that. So if you come over here to the right and you click on the number, it will take you to the place in the code where the error is. Okay, it said image was not defined. It's absolutely right because it should be a capital I. This image array is not defined. When you have an error, always look at the first problem because that first error can create other errors. Quite often, fixing the first error fixes everything. So now if I come back into my code and I fix that little problem and I save it, if I go out and reload my page, it's going to work. So if you do run into problems and you cannot figure them out, make sure you have everything loaded online and then send me an email and I will go look at them.